Good evening. I hope you're feeling comfortable tonight. Maybe you're under a blanket. Maybe the lights are low. Maybe the world is finally quiet. Tonight, we're going to gently explore Greek mythology, from the very beginning, when there was nothing but chaos, to gods who ruled the sky, heroes who challenged monsters, and stories that still echo thousands of years later. Before we begin, let me know in the comments where you're listening from tonight. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, take a slow breath, settle in, and let's step into the ancient world. Chapter 1. Before the beginning, the birth of chaos. Before there were gods. Before there were mountains. Before there was sky, sea, thunder, love, jealousy, drama. There was nothing. Not the peaceful kind of nothing. Not the, I cleaned my room and now it's empty kind. This was deeper than that. No light, no time, no sound, no space to even stand in. Just chaos. Now, when we hear the word chaos, we think of traffic jams, messy desks, or your Wi-Fi acting weird during an important call. But to the ancient Greeks, chaos wasn't noise or confusion. Chaos was a gap, a vast, silent emptiness, a dark open space where nothing had shape yet. No up, no down, no before, no after. Just endless potential, waiting very patiently. Imagine floating in a place where there isn't even air. Not scary, not calm, just blank. And then something shifted. No loud explosion, no dramatic soundtrack. Greek mythology is more subtle than that. From chaos, the first being slowly emerged. Not born in the way humans are born, more like unfolding. First came Gaia, the earth. She did not rise from soil, because soil didn't exist yet. She simply formed. Solid, steady, vast. If chaos was empty space, Gaia was the first foundation, the first something. She became the ground beneath everything that would ever exist. Mountains slept inside her. Oceans waited in her future. Forests, rivers, cities, all of it resting quietly within her being. Gaia wasn't just land. She was life waiting to happen. And she was alone, but not for long. From chaos also came Tartarus. Now, Tartarus isn't cheerful. He is the deep abyss. A pit so far beneath where the earth would be that even darkness feels uncomfortable there. Think of him as the basement of the universe. The place where things go when even the underworld says, no thanks. Then came Nyx, the night. Nyx is important. Very important. She didn't just bring darkness. She brought mystery, stillness, that heavy, quiet feeling you get at 2 a.m. when the world feels paused and your thoughts get louder. Even the gods, later on, would respect Nyx. Some even feared her. And then, softly, gently, came Eros. Yes, that Eros. Not the baby with wings and a bow you see on Valentine's Day. This was something much older, much deeper. Eros was desire, the force that pulls things together, the reason anything connects. Without Eros, nothing would combine, nothing would create, nothing would move toward anything else. Eros is why the universe doesn't just stay scattered forever. So now, in the great emptiness, there were a few beings. Gaia, earth. Tartarus, the abyss. Nyx, night. Eros, desire. Still no sky. Still no sun. Still no stars. Just the first quiet pieces of existence slowly finding their place. And Gaia, being Gaia, did something bold. She created, on her own, from herself. She brought forth Uranus, the sky. He stretched above her, vast and endless. He covered her completely. Where she was solid, he was open. Where she was steady, he was infinite. Together, Gaia and Uranus became the first cosmic pair. Earth and sky, ground and above, they fit, and from their union, things really began to move. They had children, not small ones. The first were the Titans, powerful, massive, ancient beyond imagination. These were not gentle garden gods. These were forces of nature, ocean currents, sunlight, memory, time. Time, by the way, would soon have a name, Cronus, but we'll get to him. After the Titans came the Cyclopes, huge beings with a single eye in the center of their forehead. not exactly subtle. They were strong, skilled, and later they would become master craftsmen. Then came the 100-handed ones. Yes, 100 hands and 50 heads. Imagine trying to buy hats for that family. These beings were raw power, storm-like, uncontainable. Now, this should have been a proud moment for Uranus. He had powerful children, unique children, but Uranus looked at them and felt fear. They were too strong, too strange, too unpredictable. And fear, especially in powerful beings, never leads anywhere calm. Instead of accepting them, Uranus pushed them away. Literally, he forced many of his children back down into Gaia, trapped within her depths, buried alive inside their own mother. Gaia felt it. Every time a child was imprisoned, she felt the pressure, the pain, the weight of rejection. Imagine being Earth itself, and feeling your children locked inside you with nowhere to move. Gaia began to ache. This was the first conflict in Greek mythology. Not a war yet, not thunder and lightning, just a family problem, a cosmic family problem. And like many family problems, it started with fear. The sky feared what the Earth had created. But Gaia was not weak. She was patient. And patience, in myths, usually means something big is coming. Deep within herself, she began to plan. She called out to her Titan children, whispered to them, asked for help. Most were afraid, except one, Cronus, young, sharp, ambitious. He listened, and in the quiet darkness beneath the world, Gaia handed him something, a sickle, not a shiny superhero weapon, just a curved blade, simple, sharp, but this blade would change everything, because the age of peaceful creation was ending, and the first rebellion in the universe was about to begin. But that is for the next chapter. For now, let's rest here, in the quiet before the storm, in the space where earth and sky still hold each other, where the first gods are young, and where chaos, far in the background, still watches silently, waiting. Chapter 2, Gaia and the First Gods. So last time, we left the universe in a very awkward family situation. Gaia, the Earth, was hurting. Uranus, the sky, was afraid. And a bunch of very powerful children were trapped inside their own mother. Not exactly healthy parenting. Now remember, Gaia is not just dirt and rocks. She is alive. She feels everything. When Uranus pushed their children down into her depths, it wasn't symbolic. It was physical. They were forced into the dark spaces beneath the surface, crushed into the womb of the world. The Titans, the Cyclopes, the 100-handed ones, all pressed down into Tartarus-like depths within Gaia. Imagine carrying mountains inside you that are screaming. Gaia endured it at first. She is patient, ancient, calm, but even Earth has limits. The pain built slowly. Pressure turned into anger. Anger turned into resolve. And this is where Greek mythology becomes very human. Because this is not just a story about gods. It's about fear, control, rebellion. Uranus ruled from above. Every night he stretched over Gaia, covering her completely. There was no separation, no space. He was always there. And that constant presence became suffocating. Gaia decided something had to change. So she created again. From a stone and metal hidden inside her body, she formed a weapon, a sharp, curved sickle made of adamant, harder than anything else in existence at the time. This wasn't just a tool. It was intention. Then she called out to her Titan children. Who will stand against your father? Silence. The Titans were powerful, yes, but Uranus was still the sky itself. He covered everything. He saw everything. Most of them were afraid, except one, Cronus. Cronus was the youngest Titan, not the biggest, not the strongest, but sharp, quiet, observant. He had been listening, and maybe, just maybe, he had already been thinking about power. When Gaia offered the sickle, Cronus stepped forward. I will do it. Not loudly, not dramatically, just calmly. And in that moment, the first true rebellion in the cosmos began. That night, Uranus descended to cover Gaia like always. But this time, something was different. Cronus was waiting, hidden, still, patient. When Uranus came close, and the sky stretched down toward the earth. Cronus moved. With one swift motion, he struck, and just like that, the rule of Uranus ended. It was not a long battle, not a dramatic war, just one decisive act. Greek myths don't always drag things out. They go straight for the symbol. Cronus separated sky from earth. For the first time, Gaia had space, air, distance. The sky no longer pressed against her endlessly. And as Uranus pulled back in shock and pain, drops of divine blood fell onto Gaia. From that blood, new beings were born. The Furies, spirits of vengeance. The Giants, powerful and wild. And from the sea foam formed by Uranus' fallen essence, something beautiful emerged. A goddess rising from the ocean. Aphrodite. Yes, love was born from violence. Greek mythology is not subtle. Now with Uranus gone from power, Cronus stepped forward. The Titans gathered, and Cronus became ruler of the cosmos. This period is often called the Golden Age. And at first, things were calm. The Titans ruled together. The world was young. There was no aging, no deep suffering yet. Humans, when they eventually appeared, lived simply and peacefully. But here's the thing about Greek mythology. Power does not calm fear. It feeds it, because before Uranus was overthrown, he had said something. As he fell back into the sky, wounded and furious, he cursed Cronus. You too will be overthrown by your own child. And there it is, the seed of paranoia. Cronus had just defeated his father. He had broken the cycle, or so he thought. But now the prophecy hung over him like a shadow. And if there's one pattern you'll notice in Greek myths, it's this. The more someone tries to escape fate, the faster they run toward it. Cronus tried to rule wisely. He married his sister, Rhea, another Titan. Together, they began having children. And this should have been joyful. But every time Rhea gave birth, Cronus saw not a baby. He saw a threat. And fear began to grow inside him. The same fear that once lived in Uranus. The same fear that caused the first imprisonment. And just like that, the cycle was repeating. The sky had feared his children. Now the Titan feared his. Greek mythology moves in patterns. Parents and children. Power and insecurity. Creation and destruction. Gaia watched all of this. She had helped Cronus rise. But she also understood something deeper. Violence used to gain power rarely creates peace. It creates tension. The universe was still young. The gods were still learning. And already, cracks were forming. Cronus ruled the heavens. The Titans held dominion. The earth was free from the crushing weight of Uranus. But prophecy hovered like a storm cloud. Because soon, Rhea would give birth again. And Cronus would make a choice. A terrible one. And that choice would shake Olympus before Olympus even existed. But for now, the sky is separated from the earth. The Titans sit on their new thrones. And somewhere in the quiet space between stars and soil, fate waits patiently. Because in Greek mythology, destiny always keeps its promises. And Cronus is about to learn that the hard way. We'll step into that moment in the next chapter. Chapter 3. The Fall of Uranus. Now, technically, Uranus already fell. Cronus struck. The sky was separated from the earth. Blood fell. Aphrodite rose from sea foam like the universe, just casually invented beauty. But the fall of Uranus wasn't just physical. It was symbolic. And symbols matter a lot in Greek mythology. Before Cronus raised that sickle, the world had no distance. Earth and sky were locked together. No breathing room. No separation. When Uranus was overthrown, space was born. And with space came change. As Uranus pulled back into the heavens, wounded and furious, he didn't disappear. He still remained the sky, but he was no longer the ruler of everything. That power now belonged to the Titans, to Cronus, and for the first time, the cosmos had a king who had defeated his own father, which sounds heroic. Until you remember how this story usually goes. When Uranus fell back, he left more than blood behind. He left a curse. Greek myths love curses. As he retreated, Uranus warned Cronus that he too would be betrayed by his own child. It wasn't just anger talking. It was prophecy. And prophecy in Greek mythology is not a suggestion. It's more like a future spoiler you can't skip. Cronus heard it, and maybe at first, he laughed it off. He had just defeated the sky itself. He held the sickle. The Titans followed him. The world was finally balanced. What child could possibly threaten him? But doubt is quiet. It doesn't shout. It whispers. And Cronus was about to start listening to those whispers. The age of the Titans. With Uranus no longer ruling, Cronus established a new era. The Titans spread across existence, each embodying powerful forces. Oceanus ruled the great waters that circled the earth. Hyperion carried the light of the sun. Mnemosyne held memory itself. And Cronus controlled time. Yes, Cronus is often linked to time. Slow, steady, unstoppable time. Kind of poetic, right? The Titan who feared the future ruled time itself, under Titan rule. The world entered what later poets would call the Golden Age. Humans, when they came into being, lived simply. No war, no suffering, no aging in the painful way we know it. The earth gave food freely. No one had to grind away at a 9 to 5 job. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful. Because here's the truth Greek mythology keeps showing us. Peace built on fear doesn't last. Rhea and the growing shadow. Cronus married his sister, Rhea. She was strong, gentle, grounded, a mother figure even before she became one. And soon, she did become one. Rhea gave birth to her first child, a daughter, Hestia, tiny, new, innocent, and Cronus looked at her and saw danger. The prophecy echoed in his mind. You will be overthrown by your own child. He didn't hesitate. He swallowed her. Yes, he swallowed his own newborn daughter whole. No dramatic speech. No tears. Just fear acting quickly. And Rhea stood there. Shock doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it's silent. But Cronus told himself it was necessary. Better to act first. Better to control fate than be destroyed by it. When Rhea gave birth again to Demeter, he swallowed her too. Then Hera, swallowed. Then Hades, swallowed. Then Poseidon, swallowed. Each time, the same pattern. Birth, fear, consumption. The golden age was beginning to crack. The pattern repeats. Notice something? Uranus feared his children and imprisoned them inside Gaia. Cronus feared his children and imprisoned them inside himself. Different method, same fear, same control, same cycle. Greek mythology doesn't waste time pretending power changes people. It amplifies what's already there. Cronus had overthrown a tyrant, and slowly he was becoming one. Inside his stomach, his children were not dead. Gods don't die that easily. They were trapped, alive, conscious, waiting. Imagine being immortal and stuck inside your father. That's a family therapy session no one is ready for. Rhea's grief grew heavier with each child lost. She had carried life and watched it disappear 5 times, and now she was pregnant again, the 6th child. By now, fear ruled Cronus completely. He wasn't ruling the cosmos anymore. He was ruling his anxiety, and that's never stable. Gaia watches again. Gaia had seen this before. She saw Uranus fall. She helped Cronus rise. And now she watched the pattern repeat. The Earth remembers. She knew something had to change again, because the universe does not tolerate imbalance forever. When Rhea came to Gaia, desperate and broken, she asked for help. And Gaia had a plan, a simple one. Deception. When Rhea gave birth to her 6th child, she did not present the baby to Cronus immediately. Instead, she wrapped a stone in cloth. Small enough, heavy enough, convincing enough. Cronus, blinded by fear, didn't question it. He swallowed the stone. And just like that, the prophecy survived. The real child was taken away, hidden, carried far from Cronus' reach, to an island called Crete. And that child's name was Zeus. Now the game had changed. For the first time, Cronus believed he had defeated fate. He thought all his children were gone. But somewhere, quietly, a baby god was growing, and destiny was stretching its legs. The fall of Uranus had begun a cycle. Father against child, power against prophecy, fear against fate. Cronus thought he ended the threat, but in trying to control the future, He guaranteed it. And soon, the sky would rumble again. But this time, not from Uranus. From something new. Something raised in secret. Something patient. Something ready. And in the quiet caves of Crete, thunder was learning how to speak. We'll follow that sound in the next chapter. Chapter 4. Cronus and the Fear of Prophecy. By now, Cronus had everything. He ruled the cosmos. The Titans answered to him. The sky stayed in its place. The earth was calm. From the outside, it looked stable. But inside Cronus, not calm at all. Because prophecy doesn't fade. It waits. Every time he swallowed one of his children, he told himself the same thing. This is necessary. He wasn't cruel, he thought. He was careful. He wasn't evil. He was protecting his throne. That's how fear talks to powerful people. It makes destruction sound responsible. And yet, every time Rhea gave birth, Cronus felt that small flicker of panic. What if this one escapes? What if I miss something? What if fate is smarter than me? The irony is painful. Cronus overthrew his father because Uranus feared his children. Now Cronus feared his own. And instead of breaking the cycle, he became it. The children inside the king. Inside Cronus' body, the 5 swallowed gods remained alive. Hestia, goddess of the hearth. Demeter, future goddess of harvest. Hera, queen-in-waiting. Hades, quiet and observant. Poseidon, restless as the sea he would one day rule. They were not harmed, just contained. Time did not move normally for them, which makes sense. Their prison was time itself. And this detail matters. Because while Cronus ruled time outside, inside him, time was holding his children safe. Greek mythology loves that kind of quiet symbolism. Rhea, however, did not find it poetic. She found it unbearable. 5 children lost. 5 times she held a newborn only to watch it disappear. There are many powerful figures in Greek mythology, but Rhea's endurance is rarely talked about. She didn't fight loudly. She didn't curse the heavens. She endured. And when she became pregnant a 6th time, something shifted. This time, she would not let it happen again. The 6th child. When the 6th baby was born, Rhea didn't stay in the palace. She traveled in secret, far from Cronus, far from the Titans. She went to the island of Crete, a place wild and mountainous, caves hidden in cliffs, winds that carried secrets. There, she gave birth to a son, Zeus. Now at this point, Zeus was not lightning, not king, not powerful. He was just a baby, small, crying, completely unaware that he was about to overthrow the most powerful being in existence, which honestly is kind of funny. The future king of the gods starts as a baby who just wants milk. Rhea held him tightly, and she made a decision. To save him, she would trick Cronus. She wrapped a stone in cloth, heavy enough to feel real. She carried it back to Cronus, and when he demanded the child, she handed him the stone. Cronus didn't even look closely. That's how fear works. It rushes. It assumes. It doesn't double-check. He swallowed the stone whole, and for the first time in years, he felt relief. It's over, he probably thought. No child can threaten me now. But somewhere far away, Zeus was very much alive. The hidden upbringing. On Crete, Zeus was hidden in a cave. Some stories say he was cared for by nymphs. Others say a divine goat named Amalthea fed him milk. Yes, the future ruler of Olympus was raised by a goat. Stay humble, right? But there was one problem. Babies cry, and if Cronus heard even a whisper of that cry, the plan would end. So the Curetes, warrior spirits, surrounded the cave. Whenever Zeus cried, they clashed their shields together. Loud, sharp, metal against metal. They covered the sound. Imagine growing up with that as your lullaby, instead of gentle music. Just warriors banging shields to protect your life. Zeus grew quickly. Gods mature faster than humans. And with every passing year, the gap between prophecy and reality shrank. Cronus believed he had defeated fate, but fate was growing muscles, the illusion of control. Meanwhile, Cronus ruled confidently. The golden age continued. Humans lived peacefully. The Titans held their domains. On the surface, everything worked, but there's something important here. Cronus didn't just swallow his children out of fear. He swallowed them because he believed fate could be controlled. If the prophecy says your child will overthrow you, then remove the child. Problem solved. Logical. Except prophecy in Greek mythology is not a problem solved. It's a path already laid. Every action taken to avoid it becomes part of it. By swallowing his children, Cronus created resentment. By trusting fear, he ignored caution. By rushing consumed the stone, he proved he wasn't as careful as he believed. He wasn't in control. He was reacting. And reaction is never stable power. A storm in the distance. Zeus grew in secret. He listened. He learned. He watched the world from afar, raised away from Cronus' shadow. He did not grow up afraid. He grew up aware. And awareness is more dangerous than raw strength. Cronus had strength. Zeus would have strategy. The prophecy was not loud. It did not flash across the sky. It waited, quiet, patient, because the universe in Greek mythology has rhythm, creation, fear, control, rebellion, and that rhythm was building again. Cronus thought he ended the threat with a single swallow, but in doing so, he guaranteed something else. When Zeus returns, it won't just be a rebellion, it will be a war. Not a quick ambush like Uranus faced, a full cosmic war. Titan against Olympian, father against son, and when that storm breaks, the universe will never look the same again. For now, though, Cronus sits comfortably on his throne, confident, certain, absolutely convinced he outsmarted destiny. And somewhere on Crete, thunder is learning to walk. Next time, it will learn to strike. Chapter 5. The Hidden Child, Zeus' Secret Upbringing. Far from Cronus, far from the Titan throne, far from fear. In a cave on the island of Crete, a baby god was growing up. The cave was not glamorous. No golden pillars, no marble floors, just stone walls, cool air, and the sound of wind slipping through cracks in the rock. But sometimes the safest place for power is simplicity. Zeus was hidden there from the moment he was born. Rhea had done what she could. She had fooled Cronus with a stone. But tricks only buy time. And time, ironically, was the one thing Cronus controlled, which makes this even more poetic. Because while Cronus ruled time as a Titan, he had no idea time was raising his replacement. The sound of shields. There was one problem. Babies cry. And Zeus was no different. Whenever he cried, the sound echoed to the cave and bounced against the cliffs outside. If that sound reached the heavens, if Cronus somehow sensed it, everything would end. So the Curetes stood guard. Warrior spirits. Armored. Strong. Fierce. Every time baby Zeus cried, they clashed their shields together. Clang. Crash. Boom. Metal against metal. They created noise to hide noise. Imagine that being your childhood soundtrack. Not lullabies, not soft humming, just warriors aggressively protecting your future. Zeus grew up surrounded by protection, and that matters, because unlike Cronus, who grew up trapped under Uranus' fear, Zeus grew up protected from it. Fear did not shape him. Secrecy did. Amalthea and the mountain. Some stories say Zeus was fed by a divine goat named Amalthea. Yes, the future king of the gods, ruler of lightning and thunder, raised on goat milk. There's something grounding about that. It reminds you that even the most powerful figures start small. Amalthea nourished him. The nymphs cared for him. The mountains sheltered him. Nature itself seemed invested in his survival. Gaia was watching. And if Gaia supports you, that's a good sign. As Zeus grew, he explored the caves, climbed the cliffs, felt the wind push against him. He wasn't raised in a palace. He was raised in the wild, and the wild teaches different lessons. Strength, balance, patience. You learn to observe before acting. You learn that storms don't shout before they arrive. They gather quietly. The weight of destiny. Now here's something interesting. Zeus may not have known about the prophecy at first, but at some point someone told him. Maybe Rhea visited in secret. Maybe Gaia whispered through the earth. Maybe the nymphs explained it carefully. However it happened, Zeus eventually learned the truth. His father had swallowed his siblings. His father feared him. His father would destroy him if given the chance. That's a lot to process, especially when you're technically still young. But Zeus didn't panic. He didn't rush down from a mountain with dramatic speeches. He waited, and waiting is powerful. Cronus had acted quickly when he feared prophecy. Zeus would act carefully. That difference alone would change everything. Cronus' illusion of peace. Meanwhile, Cronus ruled comfortably. He believed all threats were gone. 5 children swallowed. The 6 consumed, or so he thought. The Titans remained loyal. The Golden Age continued. But something subtle had shifted. When you act out of fear long enough, it changes you. Cronus became suspicious, watchful, tense. He trusted no one fully. Even his own throne probably didn't feel stable. And that's the thing about paranoia. It isolates you. The more Cronus tried to control fate, the more alone he became. Zeus, on the other hand, grew surrounded by allies, protected by warriors, fed by nature, supported by Gaia. One ruled through fear. The other was raised through trust. And when those two energies eventually collide, it won't be balanced. The turning point. As Zeus matured, he began a plan. He couldn't defeat Cronus alone. Not yet. The Titans were powerful. Cronus controlled time, and his siblings were still trapped inside their father. So Zeus needed strategy. According to myth, he sought help from Metis, a Titaness known for wisdom and cunning. And this is important. Zeus didn't choose brute force first. He chose intelligence. Metis gave him a plan. A simple one. Make Cronus vomit. Yes, sometimes mythology solves cosmic problems in very direct ways. The idea was to give Cronus something that would force him to release what he swallowed. And that meant freeing Zeus' siblings. Because 5 imprisoned gods are still 5 gods. And 5 angry siblings? That's a strong team. The calm before the storm. Zeus prepared quietly. No dramatic entrance. No thunder yet. Just patience. He descended from Crete not as a roaring conqueror, but as someone ready. And somewhere deep inside Cronus, something probably felt off. You know that feeling when you think you solved a problem years ago, and suddenly it shows up again? That, because fate doesn't disappear. It matures. The cave in Crete had done its job. The hidden child was no longer helpless. He was thoughtful, strategic, and strong. The shields that once clashed to hide his cries would soon be replaced by something louder. Thunder. Real thunder. Because Zeus was not just another son. He was the breaking of the cycle. Uranus feared his children. Cronus feared his children. Zeus was about to confront his father directly, not out of panic, but out of purpose. The Golden Age was ending. The age of the Olympians was about to begin. And somewhere above the mountains of Crete, clouds were starting to gather. Next chapter, the War of the Gods begins. Crescent moon high voltage. Let's go crescent moon high voltage. Now the universe gets loud. Chapter 6. The Titanomachy, War of the Gods. For years, Zeus waited. He grew. He planned. He listened. And when the moment finally came, he did not rush in with lightning. He walked in calmly. According to the myth, Zeus returned to his father's court not as a warrior, but in disguise. Some stories say he became Cronus' cupbearer. Imagine that. The future king of the gods, pouring drinks to the king who tried to swallow him. That's patience on another level. But Zeus wasn't there to serve. He was there to set something in motion. With the help of Metis, the Titaness of wisdom, Zeus prepared a special mixture. A potion, not flashy, not glowing, just effective. And he slipped it into Cronus' drink. Now remember, Cronus believed he had swallowed every threat. He believed the prophecy was defeated. So he drank. And then things got uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Cronus began to convulse. And one by one, he vomited up his children. Yes, Greek mythology does not hold back. First came the stone, the one he had swallowed thinking it was Zeus, then Hestia, then Demeter, then Hera, then Hades, then Poseidon, alive, unharmed, very confused. Imagine being swallowed as a newborn and coming out grown. That's a rough childhood. The prophecy was no longer hidden. It was standing right in front of Cronus. 6 children, united and not happy, choosing sides. At that moment, the universe split, because this wasn't just a family argument anymore. It was war. The Titans had to choose. Some remained loyal to Cronus. Others stayed neutral. But Zeus and his siblings were not enough alone. They needed more power. And Zeus knew exactly where to find it. Deep in Tartarus. The Cyclopes and the 100-handed ones were still imprisoned. The same ones Uranus had feared long ago. Zeus descended into the abyss and freed them. This was smart, because when you free someone who has been imprisoned for ages, they remember. The Cyclopes were master craftsmen, and to thank Zeus, they forged weapons. Not ordinary weapons, iconic ones. For Zeus, the thunderbolt. For Poseidon, the trident. For Hades, the helm of darkness, which made him invisible. Just like that, the balance shifted. Cronus had titans. Zeus had lightning. And lightning travels fast. The war begins. The war that followed is called the Titanomachy, and it did not last a week or a month. It lasted 10 years. 10 years of cosmic battle. Mountains shook. Seas boiled. The sky cracked with thunder. This wasn't just armies clashing. This was nature fighting itself. Cronus and the Titans held Mount Othrys. Zeus and the Olympians held Mount Olympus. 2 mountains facing each other. 2 generations. 2 visions of power. Every thunderbolt Zeus threw split the sky open. Poseidon struck the earth, causing quakes. Hades moved unseen, strategic and silent. And then there were the 100-handed ones. Imagined beings with 100 arms throwing massive boulders endlessly. They turned the battlefield into chaos. The kind of chaos that existed before everything began. It's almost poetic. The universe returned to violence in order to reshape itself. The fall of the Titans. For years, neither side could fully win. The Titans were ancient, powerful, experienced. But Zeus had something they didn't. Momentum and unity. The siblings fought together. They had been imprisoned together. They had suffered together. That bond matters. Cronus ruled through fear. Zeus led through alliance. And slowly the tide turned. Thunder grew louder. The earth itself seemed to side with Zeus. Gaia watched again, and this time she did not intervene. The universe was correcting itself. Finally, with one final surge of power, Zeus and his allies overwhelmed the Titans. Cronus fell, not with dramatic speech, not with final curse, just defeat. The Titans who fought beside him were bound in chains and cast into Tartarus. And this time, the prison was guarded. The 100-handed ones stood watch, ensuring the Titans would never rise again. The abyss that once held Zeus' allies now held his enemies. The cycle had flipped, a new order. After 10 years of war, silence returned. The sky cleared, the sea calmed, the mountains stopped trembling, and for the first time, Zeus stood as king. But here's what's important. He did not swallow his siblings. He did not imprison them. He divided power. The sky became his domain. The sea belonged to Poseidon. The underworld went to Hades. They drew lots fairly. No tricks, no fear, no swallowing. That alone broke the pattern. Zeus wasn't perfect. Far from it. But in this moment, he chose cooperation over control. And that choice changed everything. The end of one age. The Titanomachy wasn't just a war. It was the end of an era. The age of the Titans ended. The age of the Olympians began. The universe felt different. Younger. More dynamic. More emotional. The Titans were forces of nature. The Olympians were personalities. They loved. They argued. They interfered. They made mistakes. In many ways, they were more human, and that would shape every myth to come. But somewhere deep in Tartarus, Cronus remained. The Titan who tried to escape prophecy. The Titan who swallowed his children. The Titan who proved something important. In Greek mythology, you cannot outrun fate. You can only walk toward it. Zeus now sat on a new throne, lightning resting in his hand. The sky open above him. The world ready for a new chapter. But peace after war is fragile, because ruling is harder than rebelling. and Mount Olympus was about to become the most dramatic home in the universe. Next chapter, the rise of Olympus. Crescent moon high voltage. Love this pacing crescent moon. Now we enter the golden balcony of the gods. Chapter 7, the rise of Mount Olympus. After 10 years of war, the world finally exhaled. No more boulders flying through the sky. No more mountains splitting open. No more thunder used as artillery. Just silence. The Titans were locked away in Tartarus. The 100-handed ones stood guard. The Cyclopes returned to their forges. And Zeus stood at the top of a mountain that would soon become legendary. Mount Olympus. Not just a tall peak. Not just snow and stone. Olympus was different. It was said to pierce the heavens. Its summit hidden above clouds, untouched by rain, wind, or mortal decay. Down below, seasons changed. Storms passed. Leaves fell. Up there, eternal sunlight, calm air, golden light. It was the perfect place for gods who just survived a cosmic war, dividing the universe. Now here's something interesting. Zeus did not automatically claim everything. He could have. He had the thunderbolt. He won the war. He had momentum. But instead of becoming another Cronus, he did something smarter. He divided power. The three brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, drew lots. Yes, the rulers of the universe picked straws. Simple, fair, no swallowing involved. Zeus drew the sky. Poseidon drew the sea. Hades drew the underworld. The earth itself would be shared. That decision shaped everything. The sky became Zeus' throne. The oceans churned under Poseidon's rule. And beneath the earth, in shadow and stillness, Hades built his quiet kingdom. No one got everything, which meant no one felt completely powerless. And that balance, that's what kept Olympus stable, at least for a while. Olympus takes shape. With the Titans gone, the Olympian gods began to gather. Hera, Demeter, Hestia, Poseidon, Hades, though he preferred staying below. And soon, others would join. Olympus became more than a mountain. It became a palace in the clouds. Golden halls, marble columns, floors that reflected light like water, music drifting through open courtyards. Ambrosia and nectar served endlessly. No hunger, no aging, no disease. Honestly, it sounds like the VIP lounge of eternity. But don't let the beauty fool you. Olympus was not peaceful all the time. It was dramatic, very dramatic, because unlike the Titans, who were forces of nature, the Olympians had personalities, strong ones. They loved fiercely. They argued loudly. They held grudges. They laughed. They interfered in mortal lives just for entertainment sometimes. They were powerful but emotional, and that made things interesting. Zeus is king. Zeus now ruled the sky. Clouds answered him. Thunder moved at his command. When he spoke, storms listened. But being king of the gods wasn't just about lightning. It was about authority. And authority needs respect. Zeus sat on a golden throne at the highest point of Olympus, an eagle often beside him, lightning resting in his hand like a reminder. But here's the difference between Zeus and Cronus. Zeus ruled openly. Cronus ruled defensively. Zeus didn't fear his siblings. He empowered them. Demeter oversaw harvest and fertility of the earth. Hestia guarded the sacred flame of the home. Hera, who would later become his queen, represented marriage and royalty. Each god had a role, and roles create structure. Structure creates order. For now, Olympus felt stable. The underworld below, while Olympus shined above, Hades built something very different below. The underworld was not chaos. It was organized, quiet, structured. Rivers flowed through it. Styx, Acheron, Lethe. Souls traveled there after death. Judgment took place. Rewards and punishments were assigned. Hades was not evil. He was necessary. And that's important. Greek mythology does not divide things into simple good and bad. Sky is bright. Underworld is dark. But both are needed. Balance again. The sea's restless king. Meanwhile, Poseidon ruled the oceans. And unlike Zeus, Poseidon was not calm. He was powerful, proud, quick to anger. The sea reflects that. Sometimes gentle, sometimes furious. With a single strike of his trident, Poseidon could cause earthquakes, storm surges, tidal waves. The ocean was never boring under his watch. Olympus above, sea below, underworld beneath that. 3 realms, 3 brothers, 1 universe. A new era begins. The rise of Olympus marked the beginning of something different. The Titans represented ancient forces. The Olympians represented stories. They would fall in love with mortals, start wars over beauty contests, punish humans for stealing fire, turn people into constellations. Their world was dramatic, unpredictable, and very human. And that's why Greek mythology feels alive. The gods weren't distant perfection. They were exaggerated versions of us. Jealous, passionate, proud, loving, vengeful. Mount Olympus wasn't just a home. It was a stage. And the universe had just opened the curtains. Zeus may have won the war, but ruling brings new challenges, because now that the gods had power, they would begin interacting with mortals. And that's when things get complicated. Very complicated. Because when immortal beings with emotions start interfering in human lives, you get legends, you get heroes, you get tragedy. And Olympus? It was just getting started. Next chapter, we meet the Olympians properly. Their personalities, their rivalries, and why divine family dinners probably never went smoothly. Crescent Moon High Voltage. Let's step inside Olympus properly now, Crescent Moon. Because the gods are settled and the drama is about to begin. Chapter 8. The Olympian gods, power, personality, and problems. So here's the thing about Mount Olympus. It looked peaceful. Golden light, marble halls, soft clouds drifting past balconies. But inside, it was basically the most powerful reality show in the universe. Because the Olympian gods were not quiet forces like the Titans. They had personalities, big ones. And when you mix immortality with ego, things get interesting. Zeus, the Sky King. Let's start with Zeus. King of the gods, ruler of the sky, holder of a thunderbolt. He sat on the highest throne, lightning resting casually in his hand, like it was just a stylish accessory. Zeus valued order. After defeating Cronus, he wanted stability, structure, authority. But here's the twist. Zeus was wise. Zeus was powerful. Zeus was fair, sometimes. And Zeus had absolutely zero chill when it came to falling in love. Or at least falling in something. He had many relationships, many children, many situations. Which brings us to the next Olympian. Hera, queen of the gods. Hera, sister and wife of Zeus. Goddess of marriage. Queen of Olympus. She carried herself with dignity. Royal, composed, strong. But being married to Zeus, that required patience beyond mortal imagination. Hera valued loyalty. So when Zeus wandered, which he did often, Hera did not usually punish him directly. Oh no, she punished the other person involved. Sometimes the children too. Was it fair? Not really. Was it dramatic? Absolutely. Hera represents something very human, wounded pride. And on Olympus, wounded pride could reshape lives. Poseidon, the sea's temper. Poseidon ruled the oceans. Tall, bearded, holding his trident. He was powerful, competitive, a bit sensitive about respect. The sea reflects his personality. Calm one moment, explosive the next. Poseidon didn't like feeling second to Zeus. Even though they had drawn lots fairly, rivalry doesn't disappear just because rules were followed. If Zeus controlled the sky, Poseidon controlled depth. Storms above, storms below. Balance, yes, but not without tension. Hades, the misunderstood one. Now let's talk about Hades. People often imagine him as evil, but in Greek mythology, Hades isn't a villain. He's the administrator. He rules the underworld quietly. No flashy thunder. No loud arguments on Olympus. He stays below, manages the dead, keeps order. He rarely interferes with the living. And honestly, he probably had the least drama, which makes him the calmest sibling. Sometimes the quiet ones are the most stable. Athena, wisdom and armor. Athena was different. Born from Zeus' head, fully grown and armored. Yes, he had a headache, and she arrived. Greek mythology doesn't do subtle births. Athena represented wisdom, strategy, Intelligence, not chaotic battle like Ares. Strategic battle, calculated. She valued logic over impulse, which made her one of the most respected gods. If Zeus was authority, Athena was thought, and Olympus needed that, because not everyone up there was thinking clearly all the time. Ares, war but make it emotional. Ares was war, not strategy, not careful planning, just raw conflict, anger, blood, clashing swords. He loved battle for battle's sake, which made him less respected than Athena. Even Zeus found Ares exhausting sometimes. Ares is that person who starts an argument just because it's Tuesday, useful in war, less useful at family meetings. Apollo, light and art. Apollo brought something softer, music, poetry, healing. The sun, he was radiant, talented, confident, maybe slightly too confident. Apollo represents balance between power and beauty. He could heal you or strike you down with arrows of plague, which is very on brand for Greek gods. Even light has sharp edges. Artemis, the wild protector. Artemis, twin sister of Apollo, ruled the wild. Huntress, protector of young women. Guardian of forests, she valued independence. She did not like being controlled, and she did not forgive easily. If you disrespected her space, things ended badly. Artemis represents freedom, and Olympus respected her strength. Demeter, the earth's rhythm. Demeter controlled harvest and fertility of the land. When she was happy, crops grew. When she was sad, famine, which means her mood directly affected humanity. No pressure. Demeter was deeply connected to the mortal world. Her love for her daughter Persephone would later change the seasons themselves. Because on Olympus, emotions are powerful enough to reshape nature. Hermes, the fast talker. Hermes was clever. Messenger of the gods. Trickster. Traveler between realms. He moved freely between Olympus, Earth, and the underworld. Winged sandals. Quick smile. Faster mind. Hermes represents adaptability. And every divine family needs at least one member who can smooth things over, or make them worse, depending on the day. Aphrodite, beauty and desire. And then there's Aphrodite, born from sea foam, goddess of love and beauty. Where she walked, hearts shifted, war started over her. Literally, she represents desire, and desire is never simple. Even gods were not immune to her influence, which tells you something important. On Olympus, no one was completely in control, not even the king, a family of immortals. So here's Olympus, a king who throws lightning, a queen with a sharp memory, a sea god with temper issues, a quiet underworld ruler, a goddess born from a headache, a war god who loves chaos, a radiant artist with a bow, a fierce huntress, a harvest mother, a fast-talking trickster, a beauty who bends hearts, and they all live together, immortal, powerful, emotional. It was only a matter of time before their attention turned fully toward humanity, because when gods with personalities start interacting with mortals, you get stories, you get heroes, you get punishments, and sometimes you get fire stolen from the heavens, which is exactly where we're headed next. Next chapter, Prometheus, and the spark that changed everything. Crescent moon fire. Let's dim the lights a little for this one crescent moon fire, because this chapter changes everything. Chapter 9, Prometheus and the Gift of Fire. While the Olympians settled into their golden halls, while Zeus ruled the sky and Hera ruled with sharp eyes, there was someone watching humanity very closely. Prometheus. Now, Prometheus was not an Olympian. He was a Titan. Yes, one of the old generation. But unlike Cronus and the others who fought Zeus, Prometheus chose a different path. He sided with Zeus during the Titanomachy. Smart move. He valued intelligence over brute force. In fact, his name literally means forethought, which already tells you something. He was always thinking ahead, always seeing consequences before they happened. And when he looked at humans, he saw something fragile, the creation of humanity. There are different versions of this story. In some, humans already existed in simple form. In others, Prometheus shaped them from clay. Yes, he knelt down, took earth in his hands, and molded it into human form. Gaia's soil shaped into something that could stand upright. And Athena, goddess of wisdom, breathed life into them. Just like that, humans walked the earth. But they were weak, cold at night, afraid of the dark. No claws, no thick fur, no natural weapons. Compared to gods, tiny. Compared to titans, almost nothing. Prometheus looked at them and felt compassion. Zeus looked at them and felt caution, because power is safer when it's limited. The first trick. Prometheus wasn't just kind. He was clever. At one point, humans were offering sacrifices to gods as a sign of respect. But Prometheus wanted humans to keep the best parts of their offerings. So he prepared 2 portions of a sacrificial animal. In one pile, he hid the good meat inside ugly skin and stomach lining. In the other pile, he placed bones, but covered them in shining fat so they looked appealing. Then he asked Zeus to choose. Zeus, seeing the shiny fat, picked that pile. And when he realized he had chosen bones, he was not amused at all. From that moment, humans kept the meat, and gods received the bones and smoke, which, honestly, still feels symbolic. Humans eat. Gods watch the smoke rise. But Zeus knew he had been tricked, and Zeus does not enjoy being tricked. The fire decision. To punish humanity, Zeus took something away. Fire. Now imagine that. No warmth. No cooked food. No metal tools. No light at night. Fire is more than heat. It's knowledge. It's progress. It's protection. Without fire, humans were stuck. Prometheus watched them shiver in the dark, and something inside him shifted. He had already defied Zeus once. But this was bigger, because stealing fire wasn't about food. It was about power. And power, according to Zeus, belonged on Olympus. Prometheus made a decision, and this is where the myth becomes legendary. He climbed to Olympus, quietly, carefully, and he stole a spark of divine fire. Some versions say he hid it inside a hollow fennel stalk, just a small flame, small enough to hide, big enough to change history. He carried it back to humanity and placed it in their hands. The first flame. Imagine that moment. A cold, dark world. And suddenly, light, warmth, possibility. Humans learned to cook, to forge metal, to build, to create. Fire became civilization. And Prometheus had given it to them, not as a ruler, not as a god demanding worship, but as a teacher, a rebel with purpose. Zeus' fury. When Zeus discovered what had happened, the sky did not rumble gently. It exploded. This wasn't a small offense. Prometheus had disobeyed him, stolen from Olympus, and empowered mortals. Zeus could not let that stand. If humans grew too powerful, they might challenge the gods. So Zeus made an example. Prometheus was chained to a rock, high on a mountain, and every day an eagle flew down, and every day it tore out his liver, and every night his liver grew back. Immortality has its downsides. The punishment repeated, again, and again, and again, not for a week, not for a year, for ages. This wasn't just revenge. It was a message. Do not challenge the king of the gods. Pandora's jar. But Zeus didn't stop there. He had another plan. If humans now had fire, they would also have consequences. So Zeus ordered the creation of Pandora, the first woman, beautiful, curious, giving gifts from every god, and a jar, not a box, technically, a jar, and she was told not to open it, which, if you know anything about humans, is not a very strong prevention strategy. Curiosity won. Pandora opened the jar, and out poured suffering, disease, pain, jealousy, hardship, all the things that make human life complicated. She quickly closed it, but one thing remained inside. Hope, just hope. Small, quiet, but present. Fire and consequence. So now humanity had fire, but they also had suffering. Progress came with pain. Knowledge came with cost. And Prometheus remained chained, a titan who loved humanity enough to suffer for it. Greek mythology rarely gives clean victories. Every gift has a shadow. Every rebellion has a price, but here's what matters. Humans kept the fire, and once you give humanity fire, you can't take it back. Next chapter, the ages of man, and how humanity slowly changed under the watchful eyes of the gods. Crescent moon fire. Alright, crescent moon. Now we move from gods to us, because once humans had fire, things started changing. Chapter 10, the ages of man. After Prometheus gave humanity fire, the world did not stay simple. Light changes things. Knowledge changes things. And according to Greek mythology, human history did not move in a straight line upward. It moved in ages, each one a little heavier than the last. Let's walk through them slowly. The Golden Age. The first age was the Golden Age. This was during the rule of Cronus, before the Titanomachy, before Olympus fully rose. Humans lived like gentle children of the earth. No war, no hunger, no hard labor. The land gave food freely. Rivers were clean. The air was soft. People did not age in painful ways. They did not fear death. When their time ended, they simply drifted away like falling asleep. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful. There were no laws because none were needed. No weapons because there were no enemies. It sounds perfect, but perfection is fragile. And the Golden Age ended when Cronus fell, because every age in Greek myth is tied to who rules above. When Zeus took the throne, the rhythm shifted. The Silver Age. The Silver Age came next, and this is where things started getting complicated. Humans in the Silver Age lived long childhoods. Very long. They remained immature for decades. When they finally grew into adults, they were often foolish, disrespectful. They forgot to honor the gods. They ignored rituals. They became careless. Zeus did not appreciate that. Respect was important to him. So when humans in the Silver Age refused to honor Olympus properly, Zeus ended them. No dramatic war, just removal, and the Silver Age faded. Already you can feel the decline. From harmony to immaturity, the Bronze Age. Then came the Bronze Age. And here, everything hardened. Humans became strong, but not gentle. They built weapons of bronze. They loved war. Conflict became common. Their houses were made of bronze. Their tools were bronze. Their hearts also started to feel like bronze. They were powerful, yes, but violent. Instead of honoring the gods with gratitude, they honored battle. Eventually, they destroyed themselves. War consumed them. No divine lightning needed, just their own aggression. And just like that, another age ended, the Age of Heroes. Now here's the interesting part. After the Bronze Age came something slightly different, the Age of Heroes. This wasn't golden peace, but it wasn't total corruption either. This was the time of legendary figures. Heracles, Perseus, Theseus, Achilles, Odysseus. Heroes who were often part divine, part mortal. They faced monsters, went on impossible quests, fought wars that would echo for centuries. This age had tragedy, but it also had courage. Unlike the Bronze Age, this era produced stories. Glory mixed with suffering, strength mixed with fate. The Trojan War happened in this age. Great deeds, great losses, and when the heroes faded, so did something else. The direct closeness between gods and humans began to weaken. The Iron Age, and then came the Iron Age, which, according to the poet Hesiod, was his own time. And honestly, he did not sound impressed. The Iron Age was hard. People had to work the land. Life was full of struggle. Trust became rare. Greed grew. Families fought. Justice felt distant. Humans aged painfully. Children did not always respect parents. Leaders were not always wise. It sounds familiar, right? In the Iron Age, humanity became complicated. Not purely evil. Not purely good. Just flawed. Working. Struggling. Trying. And the gods? They watched. Sometimes intervened. Sometimes stayed silent. But something had changed. In the Golden Age, humans lived like children of the earth. In the Iron Age, humans lived by effort, by sweat, by choice. And maybe that's the point, because fire had given them knowledge. Knowledge brings responsibility, and responsibility brings struggle, a slow decline or growth. Now here's something to think about. Greek mythology frames these ages as decline, from gold to silver to bronze to iron, from harmony to hardship. But maybe it's not just decline. Maybe it's complexity. The Golden Age had peace, but no ambition. The Iron Age has suffering, but also creativity, innovation, stories, choice. Without struggle, there are no heroes. Without hardship, there is no resilience. And maybe that's what Prometheus understood. Fire would bring pain, but it would also bring possibility. The gods and the ages. Each age reflected the relationship between gods and humans. When humans were grateful, things were calm. When they became arrogant, punishment followed. But over time, something subtle shifted. Humans became less dependent. They built cities, created laws, formed societies. They still feared the gods, but they also relied on themselves. And that slow independence, that would eventually change the world. But we're not there yet. For now, humanity lives in the Iron Age, working the land, facing storms, praying when thunder rolls, telling stories about heroes long gone, and wondering whether the gods are watching. Up on Olympus, the immortals still shine, but below, life is harder now, more real, more human, and next, we descend into a place even deeper than struggle, the realm beneath the earth, the kingdom of Hades. Next chapter, the underworld. Crescent moon. All right, crescent moon. Now we go down, not metaphorically, literally. Chapter 11, the underworld, realm of Hades. While Olympus shines in eternal sunlight, there is another kingdom, far below the roots of mountains, beneath soil, beneath stone, beneath even memory, the underworld. Now, let's clear something up immediately. The Greek underworld is not hell the way modern stories describe it. It's not all fire and screaming and dramatic red lighting. It's structured, quiet, serious, and very organized, because Hades is many things. But messy is not one of them. The descent, when a mortal dies in Greek mythology, their soul doesn't just disappear. It travels. First, it drifts downward, past the living world, past the roots of trees, into a shadowed land. There, it reaches a river. Actually, several rivers. The most famous? The river Styx. Dark, cold, slow. Its waters are sacred. Even the gods swear oaths by it. And if they break those oaths, the punishment is severe. That tells you something about its power. To cross the river, souls need a ferryman. Sharon, old, silent, serious about his job. He doesn't row for free. That's why the Greeks place coins over the eyes of the dead. Payment for passage. No coin, you wait. And waiting in the dark forever is not ideal. So always tip your ferryman. The gates and the guardian. After crossing the river, souls reach the gates of the underworld. And guarding those gates is Cerberus. Yes, the famous three-headed dog. Massive, loyal to Hades. Not evil, just very serious about security. He doesn't let souls escape. Entry is easy. Exit? Not so much. Though a few heroes will try later. And some will succeed. Temporarily. The structure of the afterlife. Now here's where the underworld gets interesting. Not all souls go to the same place. The Greeks believed in different regions. First, there's the Asphodel Meadows. This is where most souls go. Not punished. Not rewarded. Just existing. Shadows of who they once were. Walking slowly. No intense joy. No intense suffering. Just a quiet afterlife. Then there's Elysium, the good place, reserved for heroes and those favored by the gods. Green fields, soft light, peaceful joy. If you live bravely or virtuously, this was your reward. And then there's Tartarus. Remember Tartarus from the very beginning? The abyss born from chaos? This is where the worst offenders go. Not ordinary wrongdoers, but cosmic threats. Titans, monsters, those who challenge divine order. Tartarus is deep, so deep that even gods think twice about going near it. And guess who's down there? Cronus. still sitting with his thoughts. Time has a lot of time to think. Hades himself. Now, let's talk about Hades properly. He is not red. He does not carry a pitchfork. He does not tempt mortals. He rules, calmly, with authority. He rarely leaves his kingdom, which makes sense. Someone has to manage things. Death is constant, and unlike Zeus, Hades does not seek attention. He doesn't throw thunder. He doesn't start arguments on Olympus. He simply ensures balance. Everyone dies. Everyone arrives. No favoritism. No drama. Actually, Hades might be the most consistent god of them all. Persephone, the queen below. But the underworld is not ruled by Hades alone. There is a queen, Persephone, daughter of Demeter, goddess of harvest. Now her story changes everything. One day, while Persephone was gathering flowers in a field, the earth split open, and Hades emerged in his chariot. He took her to the underworld. Was it romantic? Was it kidnapping? Depends on which ancient poet you ask. But what matters is this. Demeter was devastated, and when Demeter grieves, the earth suffers. Crops stop growing. Fields turn barren. Famine spread. Humans began to starve. Zeus realized this was becoming a problem, so a compromise was made. Persephone would spend part of the year in the underworld with Hades, and part of the year above with her mother. But there was a catch. Persephone had eaten pomegranate seeds in the underworld, and eating food there binds you to it. So the cycle was set. When Persephone rises to the surface, Demeter rejoices. The earth blooms, spring and summer. When Persephone returns below, Demeter mourns. Autumn and winter. The seasons were born from a mother's love. Greek mythology does that. It turns emotion into weather, a necessary realm. The underworld is not a place of chaos. It is necessary. Without death, there is no life cycle. Without endings, there are no beginnings. Hades does not compete with Zeus. He complements him. Sky above, earth in the middle, underworld below. 3 realms. Balance. But here's something to remember. The underworld is not locked away from stories. Heroes will descend into it. Gods will bargain within it. And secrets lie beneath its quiet surface. Because sometimes, the most powerful moments in mythology happen not in bright halls, but in shadow. Next chapter, we rise back up to meet one of the greatest heroes of all time. A man strong enough to shake the world. Heracles, Crescent Moon. All right, Crescent Moon. Time to meet strength itself. But not the loud, flexing kind. The tragic kind. Chapter 12. Heracles, Strength and Suffering. If you ask someone to name a Greek hero, most will say one name. Heracles. Or, if you grew up here in the Roman version, Hercules, son of Zeus. Strongest mortal to ever live. But here's the thing about Heracles. His story is not just about muscles. It's about pain. And honestly, a lot of it, a difficult beginning. Heracles was born to a mortal woman named Alcmene. And his father? Zeus. Now you already know what that means. Hera. Hera did not appreciate Zeus' side projects. And she definitely did not appreciate the results of them. So before Heracles could even walk, he was already in danger. When he was still a baby, Hera sent 2 serpents into his crib. Just a casual assassination attempt. But baby Heracles? He grabbed both snakes and strangled them, which is not normal baby behavior. That's when everyone realized this child was different. Very different. The curse. As Heracles grew, so did his strength. He became unmatched in physical power. But Hera wasn't finished. She couldn't harm Zeus directly, so she aimed at his son. One day, Hera sent madness upon Heracles. Not anger, not irritation. Madness. In that state, he did something terrible. He killed his own wife and children. And when the madness faded, he saw what he had done. Greek mythology does not protect its heroes from tragedy. Heracles wasn't evil. He was manipulated. But guilt doesn't disappear just because it wasn't your idea. Broken by grief, Heracles sought redemption. He went to the Oracle of Delphi, and there he was given a path. Serve King Eurystheus. Complete 12 labors, impossible ones. Only then could he atone. And so began the most famous to-do list in mythology, the 12 labors. Let's walk through them, not rushed, but steady. First, the Nemean lion, a beast with skin so tough no weapon could pierce it. Heracles wrestled it, bare hands, and wore its skin afterward like armor. Second, the Lernaean hydra, a serpent with many heads. Cut one off, two grow back. So Heracles burned the necks after cutting them. Problem solved. Efficient. Third, the Ceryneian hind, a sacred deer with golden antlers. He chased it for a year. Patience matters. Fourth, the Erymanthian boar, captured alive, because sometimes strength means restraint. Fifth, cleaning the Augean stables. Now this one is funny. He had to clean years of animal waste in one day. Instead of scrubbing, he redirected a river. Work smarter, not harder. The rest included driving away birds with bronze feathers, capturing a wild bull, stealing the belt of an Amazon queen, retrieving cattle from a three-bodied giant, and eventually descending into the underworld. Yes, he faced Cerberus and brought him back, alive. Even death's guard dog couldn't stop him. Each labor wasn't just about strength. It was about endurance, strategy, humility. He wasn't just proving power. He was proving resilience, the hero's burden. Here's what makes Heracles powerful as a character. He suffers deeply. He doesn't escape consequence. He carries guilt. He works for redemption. And he doesn't complain much about it, which honestly is impressive. He could lift mountains, but he couldn't lift the memory of what he had done. And that's very human. Greek heroes are never perfect. They are strong and flawed at the same time. That's why their stories last. The final trial. After completing the 12 labors, Heracles was freed, but peace didn't last long. He married again, tried to live quietly, but fate wasn't done. Through a tragic misunderstanding involving poisoned blood from a centaur, Heracles was mortally wounded. The pain was unbearable, and since he was part god, he couldn't simply die. So he built his own funeral pyre, climbed onto it, and asked for it to be lit. Not dramatic, just determined. As the flames rose, something changed. The mortal part of him burned away, and the divine part rose to Olympus. Zeus welcomed him. Hera, interestingly, finally reconciled with him, and Heracles became a god, immortal, no longer suffering, strength redefined. Heracles is remembered as the strongest hero, but strength isn't why his story matters. It matters because he fell and got back up. He broke and kept going. He made mistakes and chose redemption. In Greek mythology, heroes are not flawless champions. They are humans who endure the weight of gods, and sometimes that's heavier than any lion. Next chapter, we meet another hero, one who didn't rely on strength alone. Perseus, crescent moon, loved his fire. Now we move from raw strength to sharp thinking. Chapter 13, Perseus, the boy who faced a monster. Not all heroes start powerful. Some start unwanted. Perseus was one of those. His story begins with a prophecy, and if you've been paying attention, you already know what that means. Someone is about to panic. The prophecy problem. In the kingdom of Argos, there was a king named Acrisius. He had wealth, power, status, but he had one fear. He had no son, only a daughter, Danae. So he did what nervous kings in Greek mythology always do. He went to an oracle, and the oracle told him, "You will be killed by your grandson." That's it. Simple, clear, unavoidable. Acrisius did not like this answer. So instead of preparing for fate, he tried to block it. He locked Danae in a bronze chamber. No doors, no windows, no visitors. Problem solved, right? No daughter meeting anyone. No grandson. No prophecy. Except Zeus exists, and Zeus does not respect locked doors. The golden rain. Zeus saw Danae, and yes, he was interested, but instead of arriving dramatically, he came as golden rain. Yes, literally golden light pouring through the ceiling. Greek mythology really commits to symbolism. Danae became pregnant, and soon she gave birth to a son. Perseus. When Acrisius discovered this, he didn't execute them. Instead, he placed Danae and baby Perseus into a wooden chest and set them adrift at sea, which is a very extreme way of saying, I don't want to deal with this. But the sea has its own plans. The chest floated. Waves pushed it, and eventually it reached an island. They survived, because destiny doesn't drown easily. Growing up, Perseus grew up on that island. No palace, no royal training, just a quiet life with his mother. But trouble eventually arrived. The local king, Polydectes, wanted to marry Danae. Perseus didn't trust him, and Polydectes didn't like Perseus standing in the way. So he came up with a plan. He told Perseus, if you want to prove yourself, bring me the head of Medusa. Now this was not a small task. Medusa was one of the Gorgons, a monster with snakes for hair, and eyes that turned anyone who looked at her into stone. Warriors had tried. Statues were the only thing left of them. It was basically a suicide mission. Polydectes assumed Perseus would fail. Problem gone. But here's the twist. The gods like Perseus, and this time they helped the gifts of the gods. Athena gave Perseus a polished shield, shiny enough to act like a mirror. Hermes gave him a sharp sword. Other divine tools followed. Winged sandals for flight, a bag to safely hold the head, and a helm that made him invisible. Unlike Heracles, Perseus didn't rely on brute force. He relied on strategy, which already makes him interesting. Facing Medusa, Perseus found Medusa sleeping, surrounded by statues of fallen heroes, frozen in fear. He did not look at her directly. Instead, he used a reflection in Athena's shield. Carefully, slowly, one precise strike, and Medusa's head was severed. From her neck sprang Pegasus, the winged horse. Yes, even monsters in Greek mythology come with bonus surprises. Perseus placed the head in the bag and left before Medusa's sisters could catch him. Mission complete, without ever making eye contact. Work smarter, remember? The rescue. On his way home, Perseus encountered something else. A woman chained to a rock by the sea, Andromeda. She was being sacrificed to a sea monster because her mother had bragged too much, which feels like a lesson. Perseus didn't hesitate. He fought the monster. Some versions say he used Medusa's head to turn it into stone. Either way, he saved Andromeda. They married, and just like that, Perseus became not just a monster slayer, but a hero in the eyes of many. The prophecy fulfilled. Eventually, Perseus returned to Argos, and here's where things get interesting. Acrisius, the grandfather who tried to escape fate, had fled out of fear. Years later, at a public athletic event, Perseus threw a discus. It flew off course, struck an old man in the crowd, and killed him. That old man, Acrisius. Perseus never meant to harm him, but the prophecy came true anyway, which is something Greek mythology keeps reminding us. You cannot outrun fate. You can lock doors. You can set people adrift. You can build bronze chambers. But destiny will find its path. A different kind of hero. Perseus is not remembered for strength alone. He is remembered for thinking, for using reflection instead of pride, for accepting help, for not charging blindly at danger. He didn't stare at the monster. He changed his angle. And maybe that's the real lesson. Sometimes you defeat the impossible by not looking at it the usual way. Next chapter, another hero enters the maze. And this time, the monster waits at the center. Theseus. Crescent moon. Alright, crescent moon. Now we enter a maze. And not just the stone kind. The emotional kind too. Chapter 14. Theseus and the Minotaur. The boy who entered the labyrinth. If Perseus defeated a monster by avoiding its gaze, Theseus would defeat one by walking straight into it home, which already sounds risky. Very risky. The shadow over Athens. The story begins in Athens. At this time, Athens was not the powerful city we imagine today. It was under pressure, because across the sea on the island of Crete ruled King Minos. Powerful, wealthy, and not someone you wanted to upset. But Athens had upset him, and the punishment was brutal. Every 9 years, Athens had to send 7 young men and 7 young women to Crete, 14 in total. They would be placed inside the labyrinth, and inside that maze waited the Minotaur, half man, half bull, all hunger. No one who entered had ever returned. It wasn't challenge. It was a death sentence. And Athens had no choice. The birth of the monster. Now, the Minotaur wasn't random. He was a result of divine drama. King Minos had once promised Poseidon he would sacrifice a magnificent white bull. But when the bull arrived, it was too beautiful. So Minos kept it and sacrificed a different one. Poseidon noticed. And gods don't ignore broken promises. So as punishment, Poseidon caused Minos' wife, Persephone, to fall in love with the bull. Yes, Greek mythology is wild. From that strange union, the Minotaur was born. Ashamed and terrified, Minos ordered a master craftsman named Daedalus to build a prison. The labyrinth, not just a maze. A trap so complex that even the builder struggled to escape. And inside it, the Minotaur waited. Theseus volunteers. Back in Athens, when the time came again to send 14 youths, a prince stepped forward. Theseus, son of King Aegeus. Strong, confident, determined. He couldn't stand watching his city send its children to die, so he volunteered. Now here's something important. Unlike Heracles, Theseus didn't have overwhelming strength. Unlike Perseus, he didn't start with divine weapons. He had courage, and sometimes courage is enough to begin. King Aegeus begged him not to go, but Theseus promised something. If I survive, I will return with white sails on our ship. If I fail, the sails will remain black. A simple signal, a small detail. Remember that. Arrival in Crete. When Theseus arrived in Crete, something unexpected happened. Ariadne saw him, daughter of King Minos, and she fell in love with him. Greek mythology moves quickly with love. She knew the labyrinth meant death, but she also knew something else. Her father had secrets, and so did Daedalus. Ariadne approached Theseus in secret. I will help you, she said, and she handed him something simple, a ball of thread, not a sword, not armor, thread. Sometimes the smallest tool changes everything. The labyrinth, the doors opened, the 14 entered, and the maze swallowed them, twisting corridors, endless turns, stone walls echoing with distant breathing. Theseus tied the thread to the entrance, and as he moved deeper, he unrolled it behind him, forward, step by step, no rushing, no panic. Somewhere ahead, heavy footsteps echoed. The Minotaur, massive, muscles thick, breath hot, eyes filled with instinct. No clever speeches, no dramatic monologues, just survival. Theseus faced him. The fight was brutal, close, personal, not elegant like Perseus' strike, not grand like Heracles' battles, just raw struggle. But Theseus won. The Minotaur fell, and the maze grew quiet. Using the thread, Theseus led the others back out, alive. For the first time, someone had entered the labyrinth and returned. Escape and betrayal. Theseus and Ariadne fled Crete together. She had saved him, and she expected a future beside him. But here's where the story turns. On the island of Naxos, Theseus left her. Some versions say the gods ordered it. Some say he simply chose to. Either way, Ariadne woke alone, and that betrayal lingers in the myth. Theseus may have defeated a monster, but he created heartbreak. Greek heroes are never spotless. The forgotten sails. As Theseus sailed back toward Athens, victorious, alive, relieved, he forgot something. The sails. They remained black. Back in Athens, King Aegeus stood on a cliff, watching the horizon, waiting, hoping. When he saw black sails approaching, he assumed his son had died. Overcome with grief, he threw himself into the sea. That sea is now called the Aegean. When Theseus arrived and realized what he had forgotten, the weight of victory felt very different. He had saved 14 lives, killed a monster, but still lost his father. One small forgotten detail, one thread left loose, and fate completed its design. The maze within. Theseus' story is about more than a monster. It's about choices, about memory, about how even heroes can overlook small things with huge consequences. The labyrinth wasn't just stone. It was life. Twists, turns, moments where one decision changes everything. Theseus entered a maze and defeated what was inside. But outside the maze, life remained complicated, and Olympus was watching. Because soon, the gods themselves would step into a war so large it would shake kingdoms. The Trojan War. And when gods take sides, the world burns. Next chapter, the war that began with a beauty contest. Crescent moon fire. Alright, crescent moon fire. Now we step into the biggest drama in Greek mythology. And yes, it all starts with a party. Chapter 15, the Trojan War, when gods choose sides. There was a wedding on Mount Olympus. Music, nectar, golden light. All the gods invited. Well, almost all. One goddess was not invited. Eris, goddess of discord. Now, if you're going to exclude someone, maybe don't exclude the literal embodiment of chaos. But they did, and Eris did not yell. She did not storm in dramatically. She did something worse. She tossed a golden apple into the party. On it were the words, "To the fairest." That's it. One apple, one sentence. And suddenly, peace vanished. The beauty contest. 3 goddesses claimed the apple. Hera, Athena, Aphrodite. Each believed she deserved it. Zeus, wisely, did not want to choose. He had learned his lesson about picking favorites. So he passed the decision to a mortal prince. Paris of Troy. Yes, a human. No pressure. Paris was asked to judge which goddess was the most beautiful. And each goddess offered him something. Hera promised power. Kingship over vast lands. Athena promised wisdom and victory in battle. Aphrodite promised the most beautiful woman in the world. Paris chose Aphrodite because, well, he was human, and that decision lit the fuse. Helen of Troy, the most beautiful woman in the world, was Helen. But there was one problem. She was already married. To Menelaus, king of Sparta, Paris traveled to Sparta as a guest and left with Helen. Some say she went willingly. Some say she was taken. Either way, Sparta was not pleased. Menelaus called upon the oath once sworn by all of Helen's former suitors, an oath to protect her marriage. And suddenly, Greece united. Kings and warriors gathered. Ships assembled. Among them were legendary names. Achilles, Odysseus, Ajax, Agamemnon, and they sailed toward Troy. The war begins. The Trojan War did not last days. It lasted 10 years. 10 years of siege. 10 years of battles outside the walls of Troy. The city itself was strong, its walls nearly impenetrable. And the gods? They chose sides. Hera and Athena supported the Greeks. Aphrodite supported Troy. Apollo and Ares joined the Trojans at times. Poseidon shifted loyalties. Zeus tried to stay balanced. But even he interfered. This wasn't just humans fighting. It was divine rivalry played out on a battlefield. When arrows flew, gods sometimes guided them. When heroes clashed, gods sometimes shielded them. War became personal. Achilles, the almost invincible, among all the warriors, one stood above the rest. Achilles, fast, strong, nearly unstoppable. His mother had dipped him into the river Styx as a baby, making him invulnerable, except for one small detail. His heel, the place she held him, one small weakness. And Greek mythology loves small weaknesses. Achilles fought like a storm, but when his honor was insulted by Agamemnon, he refused to fight. Pride can be as dangerous as a sword. Without Achilles, the Greeks struggled. His closest friend, Patroclus, entered battle wearing Achilles' armor and was killed by Hector, Prince of Troy, noble, brave, loyal. When Achilles learned of Patroclus' death, grief turned into fury. He returned to battle. And when Achilles and Hector faced each other, the world seemed to pause. Achilles won, but victory did not bring peace. He dragged Hector's body behind his chariot. Anger often overshoots justice. The turning point. Years passed. Loss piled on both sides. Heroes fell. And still, Troy stood. Until Odysseus had an idea. Not strength. Not direct assault. Deception. The Greeks built a massive wooden horse. Huge, impressive. They left it outside the gates of Troy. Then they pretended to sail away. The Trojans debated. Was it a gift? A trap? Some warned against bringing it inside. But curiosity won. They pulled the horse into the city. That night, while Troy slept, Greek soldiers hidden inside the horse climbed out. They opened the gates. The army returned, and Troy burned. After 10 years, it ended in one night. The cost. The Trojan War was not heroic in the clean way stories sometimes are. It was messy, painful, full of pride and revenge. Achilles would later be struck in his heel by an arrow, guided by Apollo. The smallest weakness fulfilled. Paris would fall, Troy would crumble, and countless lives were lost over a single apple, which honestly feels like the most Greek myth thing ever. A beauty contest started a war. A promise fueled it. Pride sustained it. And deception ended it. Gods and mortals. The Trojan War shows something important. The gods are powerful, but they are emotional. And when they act on jealousy, pride, or favoritism, humans pay the price. Mortals fight. Cities burn. And Olympus watches from above. Sometimes helping. Sometimes laughing. Sometimes regretting. The war ends, but not the journey, because one man will take 10 years to get home from it, and his story is just as wild. Next chapter, Odysseus, the long road home. Crescent moon water wave. Alright, crescent moon water wave. Now we follow the man who survived the war, but not the journey home. Chapter 16, Odysseus, the long road back. When Troy fell, many warriors sailed home quickly. Odysseus did not. King of Ithaca. Clever, calm, patient. He was the one who came up with the Trojan horse idea, which means Poseidon already had an opinion about him. And that opinion was not positive. Odysseus' journey home should have taken weeks. It took 10 years. 10 long, chaotic, exhausting years. Because brains are powerful, but they also attract attention. The Cyclops. Early in the journey, Odysseus and his men landed on an island. Inside a cave, they found food. They waited for the owner. Bad idea. The owner returned. Polyphemus, a Cyclops. One eye. Very large. Very hungry. And not friendly. He trapped Odysseus and his men inside the cave, blocked the exit with a massive stone, and began eating them. Not ideal. Now this is where strength would fail. But Odysseus used strategy. He offered the Cyclops strong wine, got him drunk, and when asked his name, Odysseus replied, "Nobody." When Polyphemus fell asleep, Odysseus and his men sharpened a wooden stake and blinded him. The Cyclops screamed. Other Cyclopes outside asked, "Who is hurting you?" He shouted, "Nobody." So they left, which is honestly one of the smartest loopholes in mythology. The next morning, Odysseus and his men escaped by clinging to the underside of the sheep as they left the cave. Brilliant, but here's the mistake. As they sailed away, Odysseus couldn't resist bragging. He shouted his real name. Polyphemus, furious, praised his father, Poseidon, and just like that, the sea turned personal. The wrath of Poseidon. Poseidon did not forget. Storms rose, waves crashed, ships scattered. Every time Odysseus got close to home, something went wrong, because offending the god of the sea is not a small issue. Odysseus was clever, but even clever men cannot outrow a storm. Circe and the Island of Enchantment. Eventually, Odysseus reached the island of Circe, a powerful sorceress. Beautiful, dangerous. She turned his men into pigs, which, considering how some of them behaved, may not have been that shocking. But Odysseus, with help from Hermes, resisted her magic. He confronted her, not with rage, with negotiation. Circe restored his men, and Odysseus stayed there for a year. Yes, a full year. Comfortable, rested, but not home. Eventually, he remembered Ithaca, his wife, his son, and he left, because comfort is tempting, but not always a destination. The underworld visit. Circe gave him instructions. To return home, he had to visit the underworld. Yes, again, Odysseus descended into Hades' realm. There, he spoke with spirits. He saw fallen warriors, even Achilles. And Achilles said something surprising. I would rather be a living servant than a dead hero. Think about that. Glory fades. Life matters. Odysseus left with knowledge, but also with weight. The dead do not speak lightly. The sirens, back at sea, another danger waited. The sirens, creatures whose voices were so beautiful that sailors would steer toward them and crash. Odysseus wanted to hear them. Curiosity again. So he had his men plug their ears with wax, and he had himself tied to the mast. Do not untie me, he ordered. As they passed, the sirens sang. Promises, secrets, knowledge. Odysseus begged to be released, but his men held firm. Sometimes the only way to survive temptation is to tie yourself down. Scylla and Charybdis. Next came a narrow strait. On one side, Scylla, a six-headed monster who snatched sailors from ships. On the other side, Charybdis, a whirlpool that swallowed entire vessels. Two dangers, no perfect path. Odysseus chose a lesser loss. He sailed closer to Scylla. He lost 6 men, but the ship survived. Leadership isn't always about saving everyone. Sometimes it's about choosing what can be saved, and that's heavy. Calypso, the offer of immortality. Finally, after storms and loss, Odysseus was stranded on an island. There lived Calypso, a goddess. She offered him something incredible, immortality. Stay with her. Live forever. No pain, no aging, no struggle. But he refused. He wanted Ithaca. He wanted Penelope. He wanted his ordinary mortal life, which might be the most heroic choice of all. Eventually, the gods intervened. Calypso let him go, and after one final storm from Poseidon, Odysseus reached home. The return. Ithaca was not peaceful. Suitors had invaded his home, believing him dead, trying to marry Penelope, eating his food, using his palace. Odysseus did not storm in loudly. He disguised himself, observed, planned, then revealed himself. And with precision, he reclaimed his home, not just through strength, but patience. The clever survivor. Odysseus was not the strongest warrior. He was not the fastest. He was not invincible. He was persistent, adaptable, human. He made mistakes. He bragged when he shouldn't have. He stayed too long in comfort, but he kept moving. And after 20 years, he finally rested. Greek mythology shows us many kinds of heroes. Heracles shows strength. Perseus shows strategy. Theseus shows courage. Odysseus shows endurance. And sometimes, endurance is the hardest one of all. Next chapter, we step into a darker, more tragic story. A king who tried to escape fate and walked straight into it. Oedipus, crescent moon. All right, crescent moon. Now we move into something heavier. No monsters, no epic battles, just fate, and one man trying to escape it. Chapter 17, Oedipus, the king who couldn't outrun fate. If Greek mythology teaches one lesson again and again, it's this: you cannot escape prophecy. You can run, you can hide, you can build walls, but destiny is patient. And Oedipus learned that the hardest way possible. The warning. The story begins in the city of Thebes. King Laius and Queen Jocasta had a son, but before they could celebrate, an oracle delivered terrible news. This child will grow up to kill his father and marry his mother. Not vague, not symbolic, very specific. Laius panicked, and fear once again shaped a terrible decision. He ordered the baby's feet to be pinned together, and the child was left on a mountainside to die, which is a recurring parenting strategy in Greek mythology. But a shepherd found the baby, and instead of leaving him, he passed him to another kingdom. The child was adopted by the king and queen of Corinth. They named him Oedipus, which roughly means swollen foot. Not the most glamorous name, but accurate. A second prophecy. Oedipus grew up believing Corinth was his true home. One day, he too visited an oracle, and the oracle told him the same prophecy. You will kill your father and marry your mother. Horrified, Oedipus did the honorable thing. He left Corinth. He didn't want to risk harming the people he believed were his parents. See the irony? In trying to avoid fate, he stepped closer to it, the crossroads, on the road away from Corinth. Oedipus reached a narrow crossroads. There, he encountered a chariot. Inside was an older nobleman. They argued over who had the right of way. Tempers flared. Pride rose. And in the fight that followed, Oedipus killed the man. Self-defense, perhaps. Anger, definitely. But he didn't know something important. The man he killed was King Laius, his real father. The prophecy had begun, without him even realizing it. The riddle of the Sphinx. As Oedipus approached Thebes, the city was in crisis. A creature called the Sphinx guarded the gates. Half woman, half lion, wings wide. She asked every traveler a riddle. Answer wrong, you die. Simple rules. The riddle was, what walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the evening? Many had failed. Oedipus did not. He answered, man, a baby crawls on 4 legs. An adult walks on 2. An old person uses a cane. 3. The Sphinx, defeated by the answer, threw herself from a cliff. Thebes was saved, and Oedipus became a hero. The grateful city made him king. And who did he marry? Queen Jocasta, widow of the previous king. His mother, without knowing. Fate doesn't rush. It unfolds quietly. The truth emerges. Years passed. Oedipus ruled well. He and Jocasta had children. Life seemed stable, until a plague struck Thebes. Crops failed. People died. Desperate, Oedipus sought answers. The oracle said, the plague will end when the murderer of King Laius is found and punished. Oedipus promised justice. He would find the killer. He would remove the curse. But as he investigated, clues began to align. The crossroads, the timeline, the shepherd who saved a baby long ago. And slowly, the truth surfaced. Oedipus realized he had killed his father. He had married his mother. The prophecy was fulfilled. Not because he was cruel, not because he wanted it, but because fate had drawn the map long before he started walking. The fall. When Jocasta understood the truth, she could not bear it. She took her own life. Oedipus found her, and in horror and grief, he blinded himself, not as punishment from the gods, but by his own hand. He did not want to see the world he had unknowingly broken. The once proud king became a blind wanderer, guided by his daughter. Exiled from the city, he saved. The man who solved the Sphinx's riddle could not solve his own fate. The weight of fate. Oedipus' story is different from the others. No monsters to defeat. No divine weapons. Just knowledge and the realization that sometimes you can do everything right and still walk into destiny. Greek mythology is not always comforting. It does not promise fairness. It does not promise escape. It promises inevitability. But here's something important. Oedipus was not evil. He was human, proud, quick-tempered, curious, trying to avoid harm. And that's what makes his story tragic. Because he wasn't a villain. He was trapped in a design written before he was born. The lesson, the story of Oedipus, reminds us of something the Greeks deeply believed. Humans are powerful, but not in control of everything. There are forces beyond us. Time, fate, the will of gods. And sometimes the hardest truth is not defeating a monster, but facing yourself. Oedipus faced truth, even when it destroyed him. And that's a different kind of courage. Now, we've walked through chaos, through gods, through wars, through heroes, through tragedy. There's only one thing left. What happened to the gods themselves? Did Olympus last forever, or did something change? Next chapter, the fading of the gods. Crescent moon. All right, crescent moon. Last chapter. Let's slow it down. Chapter 18. The fading of the gods, when myths become memory. For a long time, the gods felt close. Zeus in the thunder, Poseidon in the waves, Demeter in the harvest, Apollo in the sun. Every storm had intention. Every drought had meaning. Every victory had divine fingerprints. Mount Olympus wasn't just a mountain. It was a presence. But slowly, something changed. Not in a single dramatic moment. Not with a final battle. Just gradually, quietly, a shift in thinking. As centuries passed, people began asking new kind of questions. Not which god caused this, but how does this work? Instead of explaining lightning as Zeus' anger, some began studying the sky itself. Instead of blaming Poseidon for every earthquake, they observed patterns in the earth. In places like Athens, thinkers emerged, philosophers, people who use logic instead of myth to understand the world. Names like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. They didn't deny the gods outright, but they searched for reason, patterns, systems, cause and effect. The world didn't feel less magical, just more understandable. And when something becomes understandable, it becomes less mysterious. And when mystery fades, so does fear. The gods step back. It wasn't that Zeus disappeared overnight, or that Apollo packed up the sun and left. It was subtler. Fewer people blamed storms on divine arguments. More people looked for natural causes. Temples still stood. Sacrifices still happened. But something had shifted. The gods were no longer immediate explanations. They became symbols. Zeus became justice. Athena became wisdom. Aphrodite became love itself. The gods moved from the sky into ideas. And ideas are harder to see, but they last longer. Rome and beyond. Then Rome rose, and Rome borrowed the gods. Zeus became Jupiter. Hera became Juno. Ares became Mars. The names changed. The personalities adjusted slightly, but the story survived. Because myths don't die easily. They adapt. They move. They change clothes. And even as new religions began spreading across the Mediterranean, the old gods didn't vanish completely. They became literature, art, poetry, statues carved in marble, stories told by firelight, then written down, then studied, from belief to story. There was a time when people feared breaking an oath on the river Styx, when they left coins for Sharon, when they prayed to Demeter for crops, when they whispered to Athena before battle. But over time, belief turned into heritage. The gods became characters, lessons, metaphors. Instead of fearing Hera's jealousy, people discussed it. Instead of blaming fate for every tragedy, they analyzed it. But here's the beautiful part. Even when people stopped believing the gods lived on Olympus, they kept telling the stories. Because the stories weren't just about gods. They were about us. What remains? Think about it. Chaos, creation, rebellion, fear of prophecy, power struggles, jealousy, love, war, cleverness, endurance, tragedy, redemption. These aren't just divine themes. They're human ones. Zeus' pride feels familiar. Hera's jealousy feels real. Heracles' guilt feels heavy. Odysseus' longing for home feels timeless. Oedipus' struggle with fate feels painfully honest. The gods fade, but the emotions stay. And that might be the real immortality. Olympus in memory. Mount Olympus still stands in Greece. Snow on its peaks, clouds drifting around it. But now when thunder rolls, most people check the weather forecast, not the mood of Zeus. And yet, when we hear a story about a hero facing impossible odds, when we talk about someone's Achilles heel, when we describe a task as Herculean, the gods are still there, quietly, in language, in culture, in imagination, the final reflection. Greek mythology began with chaos, an empty space. From that emptiness came earth, sky, love, night, desire, then titans, then Olympians, then heroes, then philosophers, then historians. The gods didn't fall in battle. They faded into memory, into symbol, into story. And maybe that's the most peaceful ending they could have. Because myths were never just about explaining lightning. They were about explaining us. Our fears, our pride, our mistakes, our hope. And hope, remember, was the last thing left inside Pandora's jar. Even when suffering entered the world, hope stayed. And maybe that's why these stories never truly disappear. They don't need temples anymore. They live in books, in art, in films, in quiet bedtime stories like this one. So as Olympus fades into the distance, And the thunder softens into background noise. The myths remain, not as commands, not as warnings, but as echoes of a time when gods walked the sky. And humans learned who they were by watching them. And that is where we leave them, high above the clouds, still shining, still arguing, probably, but now at peace inside the pages of memory. Crescent Moon. If you enjoyed this journey through Greek mythology, take a quiet moment to like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And if you like more slow, immersive stories like this, consider subscribing. You can also share this with someone who loves ancient history, or someone who just needs a peaceful story tonight. And before you go, tell me in the comments, which myth should we explore next?